Powered by Rev Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Hey, the cool new flavors of spring and summer have arrived at Tim's with this year's lineup of delicious and refreshing cold beverages, including the brand new lineup array of Tim Hortons frozen quenchers. Wonderful flavors: orange tangerine, blackberry yuzu, peach, strawberry watermelon, and the new pineapple dragon fruit, which I tested the other day because we had this conversation, didn't know what dragon fruit was, but I'm here to tell you, delicious. That combo, pineapple and dragon fruit, delicious.
Okay, and do we know what dragon fruit is yet? Or does it just taste good? Because I don't need to know. I just need fruit to taste good.
No, I went through the drive-through, so I didn't see it go into the blender and how it was prepared. But yeah, I am going to do a little bit more research on this. And next time I'm doing some grocery shopping in the produce section, I am going to grab one and just test it for reals. See how it is.
By the way, dragon fruit, also known as a pitaya, is believed to be native to Central America, particularly in the region encompassing southern Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Costa Rica. While its exact native range is difficult to pinpoint due to cultivation and naturalization, its origin is widely attributed to that area. FYI.
Ryan Rashad chiming in with the definition of dragon fruit.
You know what? That's almost like that's kind of like some of his stand-ups, don't you think?
Just breathless, just on and on. Standing in front of the world's largest collection of paint. Here we go.
The best.
Oh, and by the way, they also have the Oreo double stuff ice cap. If you want something a little bit sweeter, traditional along the coffee line, delicious stuff at Tim Hortons. So Ray, you know, the new me as I'm here in Winnipeg at the Delta, right? Just getting ready as we record Monday morning, head over for the Game 2 skate, the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. So I arrived here on Friday and I'm like, okay, I'm starting this postseason run on the right foot. I'm hitting the treadmill twice a day. I'm gonna be smarter. You know, I'm gonna make sure I hit at least 10,000 steps every day. Not bragging, but so here I am yesterday on the treadmill, and like most gyms and hotels, the gym windows kind of overlook the pool, right?
Yep.
So
I know that gym in the Delta.
Yeah. So I'm just standing there, just staring mindlessly at an empty pool, and then all of a sudden I see Braden Shen strolls out from the St. Louis Blues and 2 or 3 other Blues players. I'm like, I guess they're just off day, going in the hot tub, killing time. No, next thing you know, they're peeling tarps and jumping in the pool. And then the strength and conditioning guy for the Blues comes out. And so I spent like 35 minutes on the treadmill. Those guys were in that pool that entire time doing serious stretching and workouts. Like it was a full orchestrated process. And I had the conversation. See, I thought you'd be impressed by that. Twofold.
I'm amazed. Well, that's astounding. Yeah, and good for you, by the way. Awesome. Good for you.
But then I had a conversation quickly with Luke Shen in Winnipeg Jets room afterwards. And I'm telling him this because Braden looks up and sees me on the treadmill and just gives me the old stink eye, like laughing. He's like, oh my God, look who's there. This is all we need. He's going to be talking about this. But then I talked to his brother, Luke, and he says, Braden and that group has been doing a lot of it. And Luke says they in Winnipeg do a fair amount of it. But he said it all dates back to how Nathan McKinnon has reinvented off-day exercise and then his game day prep, which maybe you see it all the time because you travel. But like Luke says, right before warm-up, he'll go and like pump a ton of weight, like serious weight, like 10 minutes before warm-up, just to get blood flowing and all of that. And he says it all comes back from how Nathan McKinnon prepares. And that's what, that's why Braden Shen and the St. Louis Blues were in the pool for 40 minutes yesterday. It's kind of a cool idea.
Well, it is. What's interesting about that for me is we used to pick up ideas that you'd hear somebody's trying this and you'd research it a little bit and, everybody's stealing from each other, trying to find the best way. But the guys now, they congregate in the summer in little groups of people they know. And so everybody gets firsthand look at what everybody else is doing. And it's
Yeah.
the way things advance, right? It's the way information gets passed. I did laugh
Agreed.
when you said that you talked to Braden and Luke, because if you've seen those guys out of their equipment and you've seen Olympic swimmers, they look nothing the same. Those guys are like chunks of concrete compared to Olympic swimmers. And you're like, man, they're in the pool all the time. I'd like to see them swim. I think they would be, I can't believe they're buoyant.
Well, they were doing a lot of resistive stretching and things like that. Right?
Okay,
So,
yeah, because I'm
anyway.
picturing them swimming away the shins.
Well, they did say, Luke said his dad, Jeff, is a mess because he doesn't know what to do. Like he's in Winnipeg.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Does he cheer when the Blues score? Does he cheer when the Jets score? Like, and Luke said the only thing I told him, because Dad said, I'm not wearing any of the Jets stuff. I'm not wearing any of the Blues stuff. And Luke said, okay, well, at least in Winnipeg, you've got to wear something white. Otherwise, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb in the whiteout, right? So I guess he said, okay, I'll do that. But apparently Dad is a mess going through this process.
Do you remember Sean Podine? We've had him on the podcast. Fabulous guy.
Yeah.
Calgary and Tampa were playing. I guess that was 2004 was the cup. Yeah. And he was buddies with Chris Dingman, who was playing for Tampa, and I forget who for Calgary. So when he went to the game to support Dingman in Tampa, he painted himself head to toe blue. Painted himself blue. And then he went to Calgary and he painted himself red to support. Now, so maybe Jeff could do that. I mean, like he could support the home club like that. But Podes literally painted himself. It was quite a sight, man. Quite a sight.
All right. Well, let's dive into the Tim Hortons headlines, and so much to get through. And obviously we can't be careful with timing because the pod is going to be dated as we go into game 2 tonight on Monday night on a couple of fronts. So let's look back at Sunday night, the start of the Battle of Ontario. Toronto has their way with the Ottawa Senators 6-2, primarily because of a power play that clicked 3 for 6. So pretty obvious, I guess, Ray, would be for Travis Green and the Ottawa Senators to cool down, take a breath, and be disciplined. You can't give that Toronto Maple Leaf power play that many opportunities.
Well, I mean, it took them 5 seconds one time and 9 seconds another. And pretty clearly, they've got those 5 forwards out there. And Craig Berube thinks that's going to be a real weapon for them. So the way you combat it is you don't go to the penalty box. But here's the thing that we saw, I think, like perfectly on display was a team that's inexperienced in a playoff game. And you have so much adrenaline running through you that you do things that you wouldn't normally do. The only way you can get rid of that is to get some experience. Well, they've got one game under their belt now, and certainly they'll know a little bit more of what to expect. Like, 6 times shorthanded, you're in trouble anyway, because now you've taken half of your team out of the game. I think I'd look at that in 2 ways. One, that Stützle penalty's not getting called any other time. That was
agreed.
I mean, the kid almost came to a complete stop. It wasn't a penalty. The other one on Matthews, of course, it's a penalty. In any case, the first period they outshot Toronto. What is 14-5 or something like that? At 5-on-5, they played a decent game. They were okay. They were fine. The trick is to try and rein in the inexperience a bit, rein in the energy, and hope your goalie plays a heck of a lot better than he did in the first game. And Ullmark's last playoff runs here have not been awesome. So they need him to be much better. He's got to be a difference maker for them.
Yeah. Well, and how does that start around him though? Because it can't just be him making 10 bell saves, right? Like collectively they have to be better.
Well, of course, but so we already talked, they're going to stay out of the penalty box. I mean, that's the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really half the game for them. Stay out of the box, play the game at 5-on-5. I mean, the only way they're going to win this series is to take the Leafs' strength, which is the high-end skill, and try and neutralize it. if you give them opportunity, well, you're sunk. You cannot allow them the opportunities on the power play that they had last night.
No. How big of and we'll move on here, Ray, but how big of a night? Okay, so Marner has 3 points. Tavares, I mean, he's been so consistent all year. So is Mitch. Nylander scores a nice one. Austin Matthews has a big night. Matthew Nyes, he's just, again, getting better and better and better. But let's drill down on Marner just for a moment, because even though that core of four collectively hasn't been great in the playoffs, right? Recent history tells us that. He always seems to get the most heat. He seems to be the whipping boy. So can a performance like that, not just the points, just how well he played all around, change things so that all of a sudden he goes, okay, yeah, I understand playoff hockey now. One game maybe doesn't tell us that, right?
No. I don't think so. I mean, these guys they're in the dozens of playoff games in their career. They've got this understood about what you need to do. The trick is to get it done. Sometimes it can be a long way from the idea to the execution. And Marner was great last night. I'm always more surprised these guys don't get it done than when they do. They're terrific players, and it's just never worked for them. And quite obviously, with his contract coming up, this is the last crack in this frame for those guys, for those four, right? Yeah. Because everything's going to change come June or July, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah. All right. We'll have plenty to talk about in that Battle of Ontario as we get ready for Game 2 and then Game 3 later in the week. The game that you did involved the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils yesterday. And, we look at that Devils lineup and, you can see the holes starting with Jack Hughes. But let's start with the positive here and give credit where credit is due. That was a hell of a hockey game played by the Carolina Hurricanes, wasn't it?
I watched that game. I said to Mike Monaco, who I was doing the game with, and who, by the way, is a future star. I mean, he's so great. But we were talking off air, and I said, I'm watching Carolina here, and how do they ever lose? They had the puck the whole game. The shots at one point were 31-8, and it was 2-1. But they weren't in any danger of giving up a second goal because Jersey never had the puck. It was super impressive. But it's the same team. They're fast. Yeah. They're tenacious. They're aggressive. Freddie Anderson has got to be just don't lose the thing in goal. Don't get beat in goal. I think they'll end up using both goalies in this series. Freddie only played 22 games this year. It's as fresh as he's going to be. He was out with knee surgery for 3 months. But, man, Jersey was, in the first period and a half in particular, Dregs, they were totally overwhelmed. Totally overwhelmed. But you don't lose a series in one game. And they played a decent third period, I'd say. And then, I would suspect they'd be a little less gun shy in Game 2. And then they go back home and Carolina tied LA this year. They had the most home wins of anybody in the league. They only won 16 times on the road. So if Jersey can hang in there, build a little confidence, then you go home and maybe you get yourselves right back in the series.
What about that weird sequence? And you and I had a bit of an exchange.
That was unbelievable.
So Luke Hughes is hurt, which, could be devastating. And then you see Jacob Markstrom is obviously frustrated. So he's looking for a piece of flesh, and he swings the paddle. And where did he catch Cody Glass? Was it on the wrist or on the thigh, or where was it?
It looked like on the wrist. So Luke Hughes goes flying into the net.
Crazy.
And fortunately, he came back and played, which was great news because he started to hold up by his left shoulder, which he'd had surgery on last summer. And so he's kind of working his way. I'm laughing because of just the next sequence as he's working his way to the bench and Svechnikov's in front of the net, and Markstrom's had it. I mean, he's been under siege all afternoon, and he turns his stick to the hard part, which is the heel, and he's going to give it to Svechnikov, and Glass just is wandering through, and he gets Glass, and now he's down. And it was like the trainer's running out there, and he's like, do I go to him? Okay, Hughes is up. He's going to the bench. He's okay. I got to go to Glass. And then the whistle blows. He's tending to Glass. And there's a great picture of now Glass is on his feet. And in the background, Hughes is holding his shoulder. He's tending to Glass. It looks like a MASH unit. And they're both going off the ice. So I don't know what Glass's status is. He never came back in the game. Hughes fortunately did. Jersey also lost Brendan Dillon in the second period. He had a really awkward fall. I really don't know what happened, but they played from the midpoint of the game on with 5D, and hopefully Brendan's all right too. And Jersey's task got a lot harder with those guys out.
Okay, we'll tee up tonight's games momentarily here on the Rain Regs podcast. Quick thought on Vegas and the Wild. I mean, was that game maybe a little tighter than you were expecting, or is that about what?
No, you know what? I think Minnesota will play well. They'll play the series close. I think at the end of the day, they just don't have enough, and Vegas just leans on you all game. And I believe they're the best third period team in the league. And part of that is that they just wear you out. By the end of it, they just wear you out. And it was a good game. And, Vegas at home is a very, very good team. I think that's the way the series is going to play out, though. I think Minnie's going to hang tight, but I think Vegas is going to control the series.
All right, shift over to the games tonight, Monday night. We've got Winnipeg taking on the St. Louis Blues in Winnipeg. I'm here for game one, game two. There was nervousness for the Jets anyway in the first period early on, and I can appreciate why. I mean, the building was bonkers, right? You've been in this building before when it's that amped up, right? So the whiteout is in full force. They introduced the starting lineup. Connor Hellebuck and the MVP chant is just vibrating through that building. So there was some nervousness in the Jets game. Then you had Braden Shen, who we talked about off the top of the pod, and he was just a one-man demolition crew in the first period. He was hitting everything in sight, but they just couldn't sustain it. And then Winnipeg found their game in the second and took over in the third. And the big boys, no different than Toronto, in this case, it's Scheifele, Connor, and Iafallo, Winnipeg's top line, just found a way to do damage in that third period. So I don't know. What do you expect? Scott Arniel says they're going to play the game they played in the third in game one. That's how they're starting tonight, game two. And if they do, then obviously the Blues are going to have a problem in this series.
Well, you brought up how physically St. Louis came out. They couldn't sustain it because it's impossible to sustain that.
Yeah.
And by the time the third period ran around, I don't know what they ended up with for shots, but when St. Louis scored to take the lead finally, St. Louis had one shot on net in the third period. Like you just cannot play at that pace physically. Like you can skate that hard, but when there's such a toll even when you're delivering the hits. And I think that St. Louis has to maybe take a half a step back, not a full step, but they've got to play a style that's sustainable, I think, for 60 minutes. Winnipeg looked great in the third period. The nervousness, yes, from the fans and all that, but when that third one went by Hellebuck, oh boy. There's a lot of people, and you read it on social media, and everybody's like, well, see, there he is. He's in the playoffs again. And then when they won, of course, everybody's gone and runs to the streets. But that'll be a tough series. St. Louis is not an 8 seed, even though that's where they are. The way they came in, they're a very, very good team. And this will be a hard series, but I thought it was critical that Winnipeg won the first game. I think for their psyche more than anything else.
So you're around dressing rooms all the time, and so you, especially in the playoffs, I mean, you literally get to see and feel the emotion of the coach and the managers when you
Mm,
see them post game, right?
yeah.
So we're standing outside the Winnipeg Jets dressing room door, waiting to have the door open to talk to some of the players. And Cheveldayoff walks by, and I mean, he was almost purple, and he was just shaking his head, and they just won the game.
Yeah.
But as a manager and as a coach, you just look at it differently, right? Yeah, we won the game, but we can't start that way. And we didn't get to our game until halfway through. Those are the emotions that the managers and the coaches have to juggle probably for hours post game, right? I mean, you
Right.
forget the
And that's
investment
one
of these
game, though.
guys. And that's
Grace, that's
one
one game.
game.
Like, so
Yeah.
you're talking about what Cheveldayoff felt like. What did you run into Doug Armstrong? I'm
I
sure he was
didn't
all.
see it.
Well, so what do you think he thought? We played a hell of a
Oh,
game, and we
Monty
lost.
didn't look good. He looked like he'd had enough too post game.
Well, when was it Neighbors that took the cross-checking penalty on Iafallo in the third period? It was either Neighbors or Bolduc. It's one of those two.
It was Bolduc. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they showed Monty on the bench, and he
You
put
can't
both
take
hands. He put both hands on his head, and he's like, "You can't take that penalty." And it's like, except he just did, and now you're shorthanded. Like, it's the stress and strain of every play is hard to measure. And like I said, that's one game.
Yeah.
So
it
now
is.
they got to
All
go
right.
do it again.
What do you expect tonight in crypto? The Los Angeles Kings hosting the Oilers in game one of that series. I mean, it feels like every other Canadian series. I mean, we've talked so much, but historically, we've talked so much about the Kings and the Oilers in the playoffs, and here we go again.
Well, the danger is to think that the Oilers are the same team as last year, and LA is the same team as last year. I think they're both a little bit different, and with I think the Ekholm loss is really a pretty important one for Edmonton. Their lineup still is a little bit in flux, which is always a tough way to go into a series. But you don't have to look too far down their lineup to go where can they make the difference. They don't have to win 4 times in LA, but LA won 31 games at home this year. I think LA is going to play really good. I really do. I'd be surprised if they don't.
Yeah.
Tonight.
I mean, would you have any chemistry concerns with the Oilers given, there's some uncertainty with that lineup? And if that's part of it, then obviously the other part is what you touched on, no Ekholm, which means Nurse has to be really good. Bouchard has to be really good. Wallman has to be a difference maker defensively.
Well, I think the first conversation there is with Nurse to say, just don't do more than you can do. Just play. Don't try to be Darnell Nurse and Matthias Ekholm. That's not going to work. Because I think when Darnell gets into trouble is when he tries to do too much. There's not a player on that Oilers team that can't grab the rope a little harder, because they're all going to have to fill for Ekholm. The meanness, the firmness that Ekholm plays with, that's going to be missed. Yeah. And in this type of series, that's really going to be missed. Yeah. The chemistry thing. Hang on, the chemistry thing.
Yeah.
What is chemistry? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like if it's in the lab, sometimes the thing blows up in the lab, right? And I mean, Knobloch's going to, try something for a bit. If it doesn't work, you try something for a bit, and you're going to move around. I do think it's so important, even though like the team that wins game one wins 68% of the series, but you do not lose the series in game one. Yeah. You just do not. And whatever happens tonight, it's not the best or the worst. It's game one.
Can you flip a switch? I mean, that sounds ridiculous to even ask that question. And by that, I mean, every player in the postseason knows that there's a different energy, pace, detail, all of it that's applied in the playoffs. We get all of that. But I think back to the Four Nations face-off rate and how those players, man, they went from regular season hockey to Stanley Cup final hockey based on pace instantly in that Four Nations face-off. So should we expect that from Draisaitl, from McDavid, from Hyman, from players like that in Edmonton tonight?
Yeah, sure, you should, but you should expect that from the
From
Los
LA?
Angeles Kings too. Like every
Agreed.
player does
Yeah.
it. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
the best example I can ever come up with for what's the difference is, say there's a puck sliding up the boards in November. It's a 50-50 puck. Two players are going for the puck and they both want it.
Yeah.
And then that same puck, same two players slides up the boards at the end of April. It is a completely different world. That the importance of that puck all over the ice, those battles, that positioning, you can't really describe it unless you're standing there. But
Yeah.
man, you feel it like immediately. It is it is a different world.
What should we expect from the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Caps tonight in Wash?
Well, I'm here to do that. I'm really looking forward to it. The Canadiens come in as one of the best teams since the Four Nations. They had no margin for error, and they kept winning and winning and winning. And their top line, Spencer Carberry, the Washington coach, said they have statistically, like, their internal metrics that Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky have been the best line in the league in the last month. And a lot of that, like Suzuki and Caulfield, are just so good together.
Yeah.
So good. This is a big, heavy Washington team. Part of the play is to get the puck to Hudson's corner and to try and finish every time you can on him, just to wear him down over the course of the series. I think Montreal's inexperience and will catch them in this series, but I don't think Protas is going to play for Washington. Thompson, the goaltender's a question mark. He'll play either game one. If he doesn't play game one, I think he'd play game two. But I think Montreal will be flying tonight. They're young. They're the youngest team in the playoffs, and there's a little different feel in Washington this year, right? Last year was a nice story. They made the playoffs. Really good. Good for you. And they lost in 4 games. And this one, the expectations are far heavier.
What do you think of Patrick Laine? I actually liked it when he was asked about playing against Alex Ovechkin. And he just, like, I don't care. I mean, and part of me is like, well, that's a bit rude. I mean, just come up with something nice to say. But
why?
Then the other,
why does he have to?
He doesn't
why does
have to. He doesn't. He didn't.
You remember back in the 2011 Stanley Cup, Roberto Luongo said a bunch of nice things about Tim Thomas, and Tim Thomas said nothing. And he said, I didn't know I was supposed to pump his tires. Like, you're on the other team. What's he got to say? Yeah, Alex is the greatest goal scorer in the game. Yeah, they know that. I like it. Like, you can't kiss the ring here. You're trying to win the series. And Laine's got the snark to him, right? He said, I'll be better. He goes, I'll kick my game up a notch. So I like it. It's like you cannot win unless you have some swagger. And Montreal has to find the swagger against a Caps team that had an amazing year.
Well, it just reminds me, post-game the other night, Hellebuck was asked post-game by one of the reporters, I don't even know who, in fairness, who asked the question, about the idea of a goalie fight when you had the shenanigans.
He said that was stupid, didn't he?
Yeah, he was, come on, man, like a goalie fight in the playoffs, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. And I was just like, oh my God, good for you. Like, and he wasn't dismissing the reporter. I mean, there's no such thing as a dumb question. You guys as athletes may feel like there is at times. That's a dumb question, but answer it. If you don't like then answer it the way that Connor Hellebuck did. He just flipped it out. That's just dumb. Goalie fights in the playoffs, dumb. All right. Before we wrap up, just a thought on the Avs and the Dallas Stars. And I mentioned this to you via text yesterday as you're doing the Hurricanes and the Devils, and Logan Stankoven has a big game for the Hurricanes. And I'm like, Tom Ghilardi, the owner of the Dallas Stars, loves Logan Stankoven for a variety of reasons, dating back to Major Junior and all that. So a piece of his soul went to Carolina as part of that trade for Mikko Rantanen. And then Rantanen has a dud of a game, I would say. Like Dallas didn't play very good, did they, the other night? And
No, they
conversely,
didn't.
yeah, Colorado got rolling. So I'm sure Tom Goularty is watching that Hurricanes game yesterday going, oh my God, would I like to have that kid back in the mix. But what do you expect in game 2 here tonight?
Do we have any update on Heiskanen? Because
I mean,
even
it
at
doesn't sound like he's
80%,
close. Yeah.
yeah, then without him, I mean, we understand, we know Robertson's not going to play, but without Heiskanen, I just don't see how they can play to the pace and the speed that Colorado can play with. I just don't see it. And like there was an inevitability to watching that game. You can say, oh, the game was close for 2 periods. Well, that's fine, but it's 3 periods. And eventually they pulled away. I mean, like Colorado can fly. And Dallas, the one thing in the trade, as I was looking at the game the other night, they certainly didn't get faster when they added Rantanen. And that was, in my mind, one of the reasons Rantanen didn't fit in Carolina was the Carolina style doesn't fit his style.
Yeah.
In Colorado, he could play off the puck, play off McKinnon's speed. In Dallas now, you've got Rantanen's not fast, Robertson's not fast, Ben is not fast, Sagan is just coming back from his hip surgery. They've got some forwards that kind of clunk around the ice a little bit, and they have to control the puck so it doesn't turn into a speedy game, because that's no good for them.
No. Do you have a favorite series? I mean, aside from ones that you're doing, obviously, I mean, you're invested in your work, but is there one that, and I mean, some haven't even started yet, clearly, but is there one that you're expecting is going to go longer maybe than people are anticipating? Is going to be more nasty than expected? Anything like that? I mean, they're all pretty good. There's all kinds of storylines.
Well, I was looking at the schedule I have in front of me, and on my phone, I just got a little drop down from my app to check in for my flight tomorrow.
Okay.
And that's a long way of setting up. I'm doing Tampa and Florida tomorrow. And I think that series is going to be awesome.
Like
Spicy.
in every sense?
Yes.
Yeah, spicy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The goalies are really good. One team, Tampa, plays super fast. They're the highest scoring team in the league. You know how Florida plays. They just won last year. Two really smart, sharp, kind of snarky coaches.
Sure.
There is lots to think that's going to be a hell of a series. And I am curious to see Brad Marchand stick his body of work into that series, because I think there's going to be, my favorite word, Dregs, there's going to be shenanigans. And I can't wait to get there.
I mean, notebooks will be filled with Paul Maurice and John Cooper. Those can be the easiest coach interviews, pre and post games, man. They're just going to be terrific. And they're
just say hello.
Yeah, just let them roll. Just let them roll. You know, the conspiracy theorists in the last few days saying, "Oh, look, as soon as the National Hockey League put out the matchups, right, and the dates and times and all of that, instantly, of course, Tampa Bay faithful. Oh, look at the typical National Hockey League giving the Florida Panthers, a couple of extra days so Matthew Tkachuk can get healthier than what he come on. That's exactly what they were thinking. Yeah.
Man, they got enough problems trying to get teams into buildings around concerts, and there's a wrestling show in one place that they had to space out the game. Like the buildings are busy, and the series is going to be played when the puck hits the ice. It's going to like it's already been a nice 2 days to start, and it's just going to get better.
All right. Well, we've got Ask Ray and Dregs Anything coming up later in the week, brought to us always by our good friends at Acon. Just thought that maybe we'd let a few games of the postseason percolate a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Let the fans, kind of sink their teeth into a couple of the series. So we'll do that later in the week when we can organize our schedules, see where we are, where we're at, that sort of thing. Does that work for you?
Yeah, sure. That's better for me. Thursday or Friday is our target date. That's
okay. Perfect, man.
It's fact.
All right. Have a good
Don't be
call.
shy with those
and,
pens. Don't be shy with those pens, eh? Come on.
Oh, the Delta pens.
Yeah,
That's
don't be
right.
shy. Yeah,
I may
just
not see
one.
you
One or two.
again. I mean, like, when am I going to see you in the playoffs?
Well, I don't know. You're out on the road. Isn't everybody out on the road now?
Most of us are out on the road.
Yeah.
The important
Oh, okay.
people. Yeah. We're out on the road.
I didn't. Yeah. Well, enjoy Winnipeg. Enjoy game 2. And we'll talk to you later in the week. Thanks for listening, everybody.
It's a tremendous inside joke. All right, Ray. Have a good one. And you're right. We'll connect later in the week. Thank you to our sponsors who continue to support the Ray and Greg's Hockey Podcast and make the podcast possible. There's a penalty on the play. Thank you to our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and thank you to Acon as well. Enjoy the playoffs, everybody. Until next time, stay safe.